Hi everyone and welcome. I'm Diane and my passion is painting and creating nature-inspired watercolors in my studio, which are easy for you to do too. I share all my paintings with you on YouTube, and on our website dianeantone.com you can find free downloadable sketches for all the videos to help you make the most of your painting journey. And if you'd like a little bit more, we also have channel memberships with loads of perks for you to enjoy. So welcome on board. Click subscribe and turn on notifications, and let's learn to paint watercolour. Hi everyone, Diane here. Welcome to my studio. Had a couple of requests for painting a pile of rocks. Don't know whether that was prompted by the fact that I live amongst a pile of rocks here in Brittany. But anyway, yes, we did a stack of sea glass a little while ago, and so it seems like a logical progression to have a go at doing some rocks. And so today I'm going to try something out. This is one I've just done. This is on a piece of Arches paper. This is Arches Lana, I think. So it's a little bit thinner than the normal Arches paper. This is just a try out, and what I wanted to do was to demonstrate the use of various different media. So I've got some pastel pencils here, which I did some of these lines with. I've got a sort of sepia and black, a sort of dark brown. Sorry, sepia is the dark brown, then the sanguine, which is the reddish colour, and white. There, these are Faber-Castell. And so I've got those, and then I've got my Winsor & Newton pens, which we've used before, and I've got a Staedtler Karat Aquarelle, which is a black watercolour pencil. Then I've got some Derwent Inktense coloured pencils as well, and I thought these pencils would be good for the marks on the background. So then I've got just an ordinary pencil to draw the shapes with, a couple of watercolour brushes. This is Princeton Aqua Elite. This is a Draw Well Flat. This is a Princeton Neptune. This is a Pro Art Rigger. I don't know whether I'm going to use any or all of those, but they're there for me to have a look at. This is my round Meaden palette, which I quite like, and I've chosen these. These are the 4 blues in the Meaden watercolour set. You could use any paints, obviously. This is a turquoise, that's cerulean blue, cobalt blue, ultramarine blue, and phthalo blue. Those 4. Then we've got yellow ochre here and burnt sienna. These are earth colours, which seem to me to be appropriate for something like a rock. These are obviously all the blues, and together they would make a sort of greyish-green kind of colour, which is suitable for kind of, what would you say, artistic interpretation, perhaps, of what rocks look like. Around here, our rocks are all very grey. Well, no, not even grey, really. They're kind of dull, beige, brown, dark, not particularly attractive-looking objects, but that's not always the case. So I'll just put that to one side. Just want to mention this. This is my studio notebook, which is available for you to purchase from the website or from YouTube. And I find this kind of thing really useful. I've made a little holder for a bookmark at the back there, which is handy. And it's nice because it's got dotted paper, so you can do, you can grid things out like this. This is a prototype for something that we're going to be doing in the future, and you've got the lines to draw by, and you can just keep notes of whatever you want to keep notes of. So you could treat yourself to one of those if you feel like giving yourself a birthday present. I'm not quite sure. I haven't quite made up my mind yet whether I'm going to have a go at doing this on the Meaden paper, which I'm still in the process of trying out, or whether to go for something more expensive. But I think I'm going to do it on this. This is the Meaden block, available from their website, 10% off if you use Diane10 in the checkout code box. This is 10 by 7, the size of this, which is a nice size for something like this, I think. You would probably agree that's kind of appropriate shape and size. So I don't know, let's do that, shall we? I'm going to take a soft pencil. This is a 3B. This one happens to be by Conte of France. Criterium, it says on it. I have no idea what that means. Don't know where this pencil came from. Don't know where it's going to go. But the thing to do now is to draw the shapes that you fancy drawing. And so I suggest you just put in a dotted line very lightly like that for the ground. And then whatever shape comes to mind. Often these things are kind of oval-ish, aren't they? So obviously you're going to put the biggest one at the bottom. And one way of doing it would be to go to the top so that you don't run out of space, and do the top one first, and then just gradually, increase the size, perhaps alternating between one and the next. And nothing, although this is written in stone, nothing is written in stone, and that's obviously wrong because I've made that one smaller than that one, so that's obviously wrong. So I think I'll make that one a bit smaller. Okay, so go up there like that. And then the next one needs to be a bit bigger. And then we'll do this one here, something like that. Now you can play around with that, can't you? I mean, if you feel that's a little bit boring in shape, you can do whatever you want, something like that. Let's do it like that. Bite me, as my son used to say. I don't know why my son used to say bite me. I don't know what he was looking for, really. So you could either do this wet in wet, or you could do it just straight onto the paper. But we're testing this paper at the moment for wet in wet capacity. So let's start like that. And the thing to do is to wet each shape, but not to wet them all at once. Do one at a time. So we'll wet that and let that sit for a second or two for the paper to soak up a bit of the water. And then meanwhile, we'll go to our paints and we'll think about what we're going to put in there. And I think if you're doing wet in wet, the whole point of it is to allow the paint to move according to its own devices and desires. So first of all, you don't really want to put too much paint on, and secondly, you don't want to try to control it too much. So we just put some paint on. And you can see it's spreading. And you might want to change the colour. And I mean, I'm going a bit with blue here. Not that I've ever seen any blue rocks, but I'm just going to pretend I live on another planet. And maybe we'll give it a bit of a greenish tinge by adding some yellow ochre. And maybe just kind of add that there. Of course, if you live in a house with animals, you'll find hairs all over everything you do. And which I have here. And you could kind of, bearing in mind I'm making this up as I go along, so, you know, you will be too. So just drop in a little bit of paint, maybe leave a fair amount of white. Because you can always add, but it's not so easy to take away. Then maybe make this side a little bit darker. Probably a good idea to sort of have a bit of, what's the word? Perspective from the point of view of maybe the sun is coming from the left-hand side, so the right-hand side is a little bit darker than the right. Maybe. Okay, so that's layer one. And then we'll go to the next one and try not to let the water touch the previous one. Just keep it slightly away. There's loads of different ways you could do this. This is fantastic practice for watercolor. Okay, so let's pick up some more ultramarine, perhaps. Perhaps we'll add a bit of burnt sienna. And we'll see that if you put burnt sienna into ultramarine, you get a grey. Oops, you get a grey. So we'll just drop some grey in there. It's a very good cloud colour. You can do it like that. Just go bop, 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 like that, and let that go in. And then you come over here, bop, 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 like that. And then you could just stroke in a bit of colour along the bottom there. Dip, 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 dip. I don't know. I should have gone out and collected a bunch of rocks to work from, because that's what I always say, you should work from nature, but you know, anyway. Right, next one. Sometimes when you start painting, you realise what kind of a mood you're in, and you didn't realise it before. So I think painting is actually quite a good access, in a way, to your inner self, don't you think? Right, so this is cobalt blue, and I'm going to put some burnt sienna in cobalt blue, and we'll see what we get, because it should be a little bit different. Not quite so much. Yeah, it's a little bit different from the ultramarine and burnt sienna. This one seems to be a little bit too light, so I'm just going to put a bit more of the blue in there. And on the other hand, this one seems to be a bit too dark, so I'm going to lift some of that out. Be paying attention to the lifting process, guys. Lift and soften, you can do that. So I'm lifting a bit. I don't know what I'm doing, really. It's one of those days. Can see that. No, I think it's going to be all right. But I did want to try and keep this a little bit on the short side. Sort of. So this one, as we get near to the top, changing the colour a little bit. And you want as much serendipity as possible. This, now we're getting to the smaller ones, and I'm just going to come in and do it on dry paper. And this one too. Okay, so now we've got our five rocks, and we're going to stand it on some sand. So we'll mix up some brown with a bit of blue to give us a sort of darkish kind of. Grey colour. Okay, we'll leave that like that. And then you can wait for it to dry, or you can use a hairdryer, or you can start working into it while it's still wet. Just putting a bit more shadow there under the rock. So I was thinking to just draw some lines on top of the watercolor. And if I come in with a black watercolor pencil, for example, we're going to get quite dark lines. So you might not want to do too much of that, but it can look quite effective. If you use a pencil on the side, get some nice broken lines, which could resemble texture on a rock. Where it's wet and you press harder, you get a darker line. like that, see? You can do this with your pencil to give more texture. And you could also use the charcoal, the pastel pencils. That's probably going to have to wait until it's dry. But you could, oh no, I don't want to bring brown in. So as soon as you start, you realise what you don't want to do. This is sepia, which ought to work. And by doing the lines in a sort of circular way, you can give shape. And then once you've put some of this pencil in, you can soften it by coming back with a wet brush, going over the top of it. And that gives you an interesting effect. It looks a bit like a rugby ball. And I need to dry that. So I'm going to carry on with this. I stopped to let it dry and to have some lunch, and I'm going to carry on and see where we go. I think I probably ought to rub out some of the pencil lines around the outside of the rocks, because then we can see more clearly what we're looking at. And yeah, this is a process of working your way through, getting to the stage of the uglies where you think, no, it's not going to work, but then saying to yourself, well, I'll just give it one more chance and keep at it. And I'm going to put a piece of paper on there, and then I'm going to find myself a toothbrush, and I'm going to pick up some paint. Doesn't really matter what it is, anything really. And then I'm going to just spatter that on to give a little bit of texture to that particular rock. I'm hoping that it will stay more or less where I wanted it to go and not all over everything else. So that's supposed to be on that one particular rock. And then we can go again with something darker, like let's mix a bit of blue with some ultramarine to make a sort of dirty grey. That's phthalo blue with burnt sienna. And just a few speckles, try and keep it under control. You'll find the right toothbrush eventually for this kind of process. And just dab off the bits that have landed where they shouldn't have landed. And you've got something a bit appropriate there. And we'll add some shadow to that once that's dry. And then you could, let me see, what else could we do? Probably want to put some darker areas in. So let's find, I've got a slightly, smaller one of these Neptune brushes. And so we'll pick up some dark and put a shadow here from this rock onto this one. And from this one as well. And we could do this one while we're at it, I suppose. And this one. And that one. And we could use our watercolor pencil, put some sort of fissures and make some of these lines dots a bit darker, and just generally play around. And you can, if you use watercolor pencil, you can always, I'm not sure about that brush, doesn't seem to have any will to live. Let's see if I can find one that's a bit better. This is a draw well, it's got a bit of a more, yeah. A little bit of dry brush here and there. Just playing, really. What next? What could we do? Well, another thing we could do is we could take one of our pens and we could say to ourselves, well, we're going to turn this into a pen and ink because we're going to put some lines in for texture and give it a bit more liveliness, for example. And it's good not to go, not to fit it to the painting, to allow it to go outside, so it just makes it more lively. And we could, you could break into, into embellishment territory and do some dibs and dabs and dots and dashes and so on and so forth if you wanted to. And this one similarly. When you do this, you will find that your own particular personality reveals itself as you do the work. Don't be afraid of what you might see. I mean, this is probably saying about me, oh, you need your boundaries, but you don't want them too firmly drawn. You like to have boundaries, but you don't want them to be too definite, which I think is probably, could well be true, whatever that means. And okay, we're coming up to here. Let's put some sort of fissures across this one, shall we? Cracks, in other words. And then this one. And then the little one on top, which could have a lot of texture because it's not very big. I remember once we went on holiday to a lake, and the lake was ringed around with what we call in England moraine. I'm sure you have it wherever you live too, if you're anywhere where it used to be glaciers. And there were these great big boulders lying all around this lake, and they were full of fossils. And Tamsin at that time was interested in fossils. I think she was studying them at school. And she said, Mummy, can we take this rock home, please? And I said, yes, okay, no problem. And I said, which one? So she then points at this boulder, which is the size of a small car. Can we have this one? Because it's got some really neat fossils in the site. And I'm like, no, Tamsin, that's actually bigger than, well, almost as big as our whole car. Where would we put you and James? And we had quite a, to do about that. It's only a little rock, Mum. No. She was very young at the time. It wasn't last year. She was 9, I think, 9 or 10. And you remember how I always say, don't stop, keep going, because even though you might not like it and it's not what you had in mind, it doesn't matter because something will occur, it'll make you happy in some way. even if it's only that you can stop doing it. And you'll discover what you like to do best. You know, when you're learning to paint, you sort of think, oh, I should be able to paint like, you know, I should be able to paint like everybody else. I should be able to paint like Louisa Massey. I should be able to paint like Emma Lefebvre. I should be able to paint beautiful peonies like Emma. I should be able to paint nice semi-abstract landscapes like Karen Rice, and I should be able to do whimsical birds like Diane Antone. But you can't do all those things. And notice that, you know, they don't do all those things either. So you have to find out what it is that you enjoy doing and call that your thing and your style and develop that. And I have only recently realized that the sorts of drawings that I used to do when I was just learning to draw and paint, if I think back, I often did line and wash. And I think, to be honest, that's where my style probably leans towards, given options. I'm not a pure watercolorist by any manner of means. I could now pick up some more sludge color and do a few more spots. And this time I'm going to actually encourage them to go outside of the rocks. I'm praying here, dear God, please do not let this fail. And then if you do them that way, they come down a little bit better. And then this is where we have to say, enough. And I'll just do some deliberate ones here because I want to take it from there, and then we're going to have a sort of repeat of dots going down and getting slightly bigger as we get to the bottom. Okay, see what I'm saying? And then the pattern kind of emerges, sort of thing. I have a feeling I'm talking complete rubbish today. I had the wrong breakfast today. I got up at the normal time, and we spent too long in the studio before we had breakfast talking about work. And by the time I had breakfast, it was 2 hours late, and I had the wrong thing because I had a piece of toast instead of my usual yogurt. And then I started to do this, and I began to feel a bit peculiar. So I had to stop. I'm putting some white pastel in now. I don't know why. I just feel like it. Here, perhaps. You could also use white ink if you wanted to, if you felt that that would work better. But if you do this, you can sometimes get a nice texture and change the tone a bit. I think when this is dry, it'll probably be okay. Anyway, so I got halfway through this video and felt a bit peculiar, so stopped, had lunch, came back. It's okay now. Teach me to. That'll teach me to what? To not stick to my routine. Okay. Nothing wrong with this paper. It's very good, not a problem. And I think for the price, this Meaden paper is definitely good for practice work. I would then be interested to compare it if I did the same painting a little bit differently. This one was done differently. It was a very quick sketch, and quite like it, actually. I think it might be potentially better. It doesn't have all the shadow on that it should have because I didn't finish it. But that one's done on Archer's paper, so, you know, you can't say one's better than the other, I don't think. Not really, in terms of the paper. This is much yellower. This has got a nice whiteness to it. So anyway, pay your money and take your choice, as they say in England. So there we are, one pile of rocks. I hope you enjoyed watching me do that. Lots of techniques there for you to use when you have a go at doing it yourself. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and turn on notifications. Plus, of course, if you want a little bit more and you want to join our Facebook private members group, please go ahead and join either YouTube membership or else Patreon, and I'll see you there. I'm always hanging out on Facebook these days. Have a go at this if you like, and share it on there, and we'll be happy to give lots of feedback, etc., etc. So I'll say bye-bye for now, and I'll see you again soon. And yeah, happy painting. Bye everybody. Bye-bye.